everybody, and welcome back to another edition of TV Review Thursday. I'm your host, the OT Astartes. We are continuing to review Hetty Feather. And this week, let's show you the thumbnail. Training in the Imperium is twice as hard as that before the Dark Age of Technology. Poor Mary can't catch a break, and that's not a hint for today's episodes at all. So, the Dark Age of Technology is an era in Warhammer 40k lore. So, you've got Age of Strife, Dark Age of Technology, Great Crusade, Horus Heresy. So, a sergeant is visiting the Foundling Hospital to see the military boys on parade. They are looking to recruit a drummer boy for their military campaigns in Africa. And Cranbourne is asked to choose two of his best soldiers who will become the drummer boy. So he chooses Vince and Walter to captain a team. The objective is that the team captain will choose two teammates, and the team who wins the three challenges that are set before them, their captain will become the drummer boy. So Vince chooses Gideon and Judd. He chooses Gideon deliberately just to really cheese off everybody. And Walter chooses Ned and Matthias. Both captains will go through a series of tests, which will involve, one will involve orienteering, another assembly, and the last one, teamwork. So meanwhile, Hetty and Sheila are working together, much to her disappointment, and they are both mopping the floor. Sheila deliberately trips up Mary, spilling the bucket of water, and then there's a mop fight between Hetty and Sheila. During all this, Matron Bottomley comes in and forces Mary to clean up while Hetty and Sheila are going to be skivvies in the infirmary for the day. So back to the boys, and Vince is warming up, glorifying himself, saying how good he is. The first task is to build a shelter. And I can tell you, building a tent, setting up a tent is really hard. I hate camping. I hate setting up the tent. I hate sleeping in a tent. The outdoors life is not for me. Not one bit. Walter has his reasons for going, and those are that he wants to meet his father again. I don't like the look of this. So Walter has his own reasons for wanting to be the drummer boy. His foster father is in the army, and he sees this as a chance to reunite with him. Back to the girls. Hetty and Sheila are changing bed sheets. Sheila is a natural at it, while Hetty struggles greatly. Sheila rudely interferes, and then they have another argument. Hetty is accidentally knocked and falls on a child. When she goes off at Sheila and roasts Sheila, she makes the kid laugh. Sheila is really angry and decides to strop off, leaving the room. You know what this could have done with? A good old pillow fight. Like, they had a mop fight, let's have a pillow fight next. So Hetty tells the child to ignore her, and he introduces himself as Charlie. Cheerful Charlie. So, back to the boys, and both teams struggle to build a shelter now. So when Sergeant Cragg investigates the tents, Matthias instantly falls down and they're asked to do it again. Well, when I say asked, he yells at them to do it again. Back to the infirmary, and Hetty counsels Charlie, and he talks about a Red Indian chief that was mentioned in a poem that he was taught when he was a child. They decide to bring that poem to life. Hetty decides that she wants to bring that character to life by making Charlie play dress up. And they can use the back garden as territory. Hetty needs a wigwam, and there are some bed sheets available in the store cupboard. Sheila comes in and disapproves of this, but Charlie hasn't smiled in ages, according to Nurse Winterston. Sheila, however, is praised by her, and she's reminded that it is not a competition. Charlie states that he wants to go outside, but due to his ill health, he can't go because he will get too tired and faint. I can relate to Charlie, actually, because I don't know if anyone know, I put a statement out on the channel that I was really ill in February. So for days, I had to stop in for a number of weeks, you know, and I had about a month of my life taken because I was really ill. It was a chest infection, like it was a really bad chest infection. But I'm doing much better now, thankfully. I'm nearly 100%, but I still get tired. But that meant that I could still do Ring of Honor wrestling, but other things, Gallifrey Falls, I had to put that on hold for God knows how long. And I really wanted to get that done. On that subject of Gallifrey Falls, we're nearly done filming. We are nearly finished. We've got one more scene to do, and then we're done. Well, when I say one more scene, we've got one more segment to go, and that's the end. And I'll tell you, it's been a long time coming. We have actually surpassed 50 minutes on runtime. 50 minutes for Act 3 alone. So it's going to be a long one, I think. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that all done. And then you've got the editing. But anywho, as I was saying, so yeah, Charlie, I understand why he wants to go outside and he's desperate to go out and play and smile. But health does come first here. And I learned that lesson months ago. So the next task is orienteering themed. They will have to run one lap around the grounds and find some ropes for the flag. Walter's team say that they're done and they are yelled at to move. Tell you what, that guy is really strict. So while they're running, Hetty and Charlie play chief and they are pretending. However, the boys run into them and Charlie pretends to get a bow and shoot them. Tell you what, Roman Reigns would just spear them. Acknowledge your tribal chief. And then set the Usos on them. But I don't think that they'll be feeling very Usy after this. Hetty says that they're friends, not foes. Charlie wants to witness the race, and Hetty finds a solution for that by letting him watch it. In the infirmary, Sheila comes in and finds out that Hetty and Charlie are out. We check in on Vince's team, and they are struggling to find the ropes. Gideon manages to find them hanging on a tree, and Judd praises him. This makes Vince think that Judd isn't loyal. And he says to prove Judd's loyalty, he is forced to make Gideon eat a slug. Matthias sees what's happening and then he stops him and they nearly have an all-out fight. Cranbourne steps in at the right moment and reminds the boys that the army is not for fighting. So Crag then orders the kids to run another lap as punishment. Matthias doesn't want to do it, and he's defiant about it. But this means that their team will get disqualified. Walter begs Crag not to do so as he wants to find his father again. But Matthias says that he will listen for Walter's sake. During their second lap, Gideon tells Hetty about nearly getting force-fed a slug. Charlie spots them while they're talking. He then does the worst takedown that I've ever seen and then sits on him. Yes, he sits on Judd. I repeat, and I will say that one more time, he sits on Judd. Vince comes and notices that Matthias is winning. He manages to get up, and while they observe the race, Charlie faints. Sheila comes and helps Hetty take him back to the infirmary. And then to the finish line, and Matthias wins the race, and Vince blames Judd for the loss. Meanwhile, poor old Charlie in the infirmary, Sheila helps Hetty look after him, and Hetty asks Sheila to stay. And you can see that this is a bit of a moment of... It's one of those moments where you hate someone, but you've got to help them because they're anxious. Also, afterwards, there's a brief moment of honor between Hetty and Sheila. Now, there was an episode of Ben 10 Alien Force when he was trapped with a hybrid on a world. They got to know each other throughout the episode, and after that, they're friends. I think that hybrid also returns later on in the show. I seem to remember that happening. Yeah, because I remember that he died in the episode where he came back as well. I think. Another example is Master Chief and the Arbiter in Halos 2 and 3, where the Arbiter's obviously working for the Covenant. He is forced to work with Master Chief, and they eventually meet. And all throughout Halo 3, the campaign is split between the Arbiter and Master Chief. Another example is Legion and Talizora from Mass Effect. So if you know the history of the Geth and the Quarians, then you'll know that the Geth and Quarians hate each other. But in Mass Effect 2, we meet a Geth called Legion. He's a squad mate. And then because of this, as it progresses, there's this moment where Tally and Legion have an argument. Now, one resolution is to not take anybody's side and remind them of what they've done. Of course, Mass Effect is an RPG, so you've got the option of taking sides there. Another example is Optimus Prime and Megatron. So there aren't many examples, but one big example is Transformers Armada, where they have to work together in order to defeat Unicron. In order to defeat Unicron. Both Autobots and Decepticons team up, and at the end of Armada, Prime fights it out with Megatron in one of the best season finales ever in Transformers history. Of course, that lasts into Energon, but of course, Megatron returns and has a hatred for Optimus. Another Ben 10 episode I'm going to use is when Ben and Kevin are trapped on a prison ship. This is original Ben 10 we're talking about. Ben and Kevin hated each other at first, and they were both trapped on a prison ship and they needed to work together. Also, we have a Sarge Ventress and Obi-Wan in the later seasons of the Clone Wars. So the moment when Sheila offers Hetty a drink is a moment of respect between the two enemies, because she realizes that she needs to help out Hetty. I don't know why I use things like Halo, Mass Effect, Transformers, and Ben 10 in a show like this. Two completely unrelated things. So the race is up. So we cut back to the book. I think it's a little sweet moment between the two, and where we see a softer, more caring side to Sheila. So then back outside to the boys, and the race is on to assemble and raise the flag. The red team get a head start because they found the equipment first, and they are struggling, while the blue team is very much succeeding. Judd deliberately makes the flag fall down, costing Vince's team the win, and Walter being chosen to go off and join the army as a drummer boy. But Sergeant Cragg notices that Matthias has guts and he has that teamwork and that spirit. So he says that Matthias should be chosen as well as Walter. Matthias, as he's not built for the army, he doesn't really want to go, but Sergeant Cragg tries to convince him. So back in the infirmary, Charlie wakes up feeling much better. He compliments Hetty and Sheila in front of Nurse Winterston, and Sheila, I think she felt happy to get some credit. And then just as Hetty says, "Could me and Sheila finally be getting on?" "Oh no, you spoke too soon, Hetty." So then in the boys' dormitory later that day, Sergeant Cragg comes to pick up Walter and Matthias, but Matthias wants to stay. Matthias wants to stay because he has his own war to fight. And the Sergeant Cragg wants to make him feel guilty and say that he doesn't have a choice in whether he wants to come or not. Matthias says that he wants to stay. And then Cragg just leaves with Walter, and he departs and says goodbye. We end the episode with a tower meeting, and Walter unexpectedly shows up, and he says that he would never abandon his friends, even though he had the opportunity to go and see his father again. So now we move on to episode 8. We begin the episode with a Sunday service, with the foundlings getting incredibly bored with the proceedings. But that boredom is broken when a couple enter, and they claim that they've come for their child, Emily Preswick. So after multiple requests and some ignorance from Matron Bottomley, they've come all the way from Burnley up north. Post-title sequence. The girls are all suspicious that this child could be Hetty, and Hetty fakes being ill to get into the governor's meeting. Hetty then enters the office and hides away before the meeting begins. The couple and the governors have a meeting, and she states that the child was given away in August of 1876, which coincided with Hetty's arrival. So the woman is called Hannah. Hannah also left a thimble as a token with the word E engraved onto it, E for Emily. And Matron is ordered to fetch the child's admission documents. Meanwhile, outside in the recreation suite, Sheila plans her revenge by taunting Mary and asks her for information on Hetty's whereabouts. So Matron informs Hannah that there was no thimble whatsoever. Meanwhile, Vince and Judd hand out clothing that they washed earlier. Gideon's contains a note, and Ned reads it out loud. It was from George and Hannah Preswick. The band's called George, by the way. Sorry. The letter is from George and Hannah, and everybody is convinced that the child is Gideon. Vince threatens to stop him and says that if you run away, we all get punished. Ned stands up to him, calls him a coward, and Vince dares him to do it. In the meeting, Lady Asquith also raises concerns about the treatment of foundlings. She says that Matron is too harsh, and of course, Matron denies these claims. So Lady Asquith and Colonel Brigwell will carry out observations on both the girls and the boys, and they will assess how it's managed. So while Lady Asquith is being shown around by Nurse Macclesfield, she asks Hetty and Harriet about their time at the Foundling Hospital, and they both say yes, as prompted by Nurse Macclesfield herself. When they're gone, Hetty thinks that Matron was lying in the meeting, so she wants to investigate for herself. Polly and Harriet distract Matron and tell her that Lady Asquith is outside talking to some of the Foundling girls. Matron rushes off her feet to talk to Lady Asquith. So then Hetty goes in to investigate. She finds a load of burning papers and the thimble. Later that day in the tower, Harriet, Hetty, and Polly put together the letter, and they find out that Matron is selling the foundlings abroad. Gideon and Matthias, during the night, sneak out and are locked in a storeroom by Vincent Judd. The next day, they unlock the door and are both spotted by Cranbourne. While the girls are doing laundry, they supposedly find a rat, and after the laundry basket is dragged away, Matthias pops out and he says that Gideon is being punished over the letter. Hetty states that the Preswicks were looking for a girl, and Hetty says that someone is playing a joke. There they realize that it wasn't the Preswicks who wrote it, and they find out that it was Mary. They confront Mary, and she says that she was forced by Sheila to write the letter, and they needlessly fall out about it. So she raids the records and finds that her number is 25621. This confirms that it is indeed not Hetty. She gets out just in time as Matron comes in. And later that day, Cranbourne and Matron have a meeting. Hetty then comes in and she asks Matron not to punish Gideon, so she's given stair cleaning duty as per Cranbourne's suggestion. She tells Gideon the truth, and she says that someday she will go out and find their parents. During the night, Hetty goes and gives Mary the thimble. Thus, this confirms that Mary is indeed Emily Preswick. She offers to help her escape, but Mary is afraid of getting punished and being put in the Tench. The next day, while scrubbing the floor, Lady Asquith walks by and gives her a handkerchief. This handkerchief says to meet with Hetty so she can share some important information. Hetty informs Asquith that Emily Preswick is at the hospital and tells her about Matron selling foundlings. They both go to Matron's office, and a few employers have generously donated a big amount of money for thanks to the hospital. So we close with the church service, and the Preswicks then burst in. Mary steps forward and claims that she is Emily Preswick, and later on in that scene, they confirm it. We close with Mary saying goodbye to Hetty and Harriet. She claims later in her diary entry that Mary Crane was a lost soul, but Emily Preswick is different. I think the fallout was needless between Hetty and Mary because, you know, she was forced by Sheila to write it. She shouldn't really be going for Mary. She should have gone for Sheila. This is where some of Hetty's character faults start to show. She's quick to blame not Sheila, but Mary. In the army building episode, we saw the teamwork and determination and a bit of truth to who Vince is. And Judd being a good sportsman, letting the other team win. He realizes that Vince is very selfish. He's a complete bully, as he was nearly forced to feed Gideon a slug. Again, not just for Vince and Judd, but not just for Judd's character, but for Hetty and Sheila as well. We see a bit of cooperation between the two. I do think that episode showed that Sheila does have a soft side. And as for the whole Emily Preswick thing, an absolute mystery. I do think that Hetty shouldn't have blamed Mary for writing the letter because, Sheila forced her to do it. And then this shows a more manipulative side to Matron, where she covers it all up by saying some employers saying that the foundlings being sold were actually in employment. And I think that Matron can be a bit manipulative as well. Cranbourne in this episode has been shown as more of a fatherly figure. This later goes for his character as the show progresses, where he settles disputes between the boys. At the end of the last episode, he's settled the dispute between Brigwell and Matron. He calmed everything down. So thank you for watching this, and I will see you all later. Goodbye and good night.